In our yesterday session, we started understanding more about what is the how many types of exceptions we are having as part of Java. So we understood. So especially we have two types of exceptions. So Java categorized exceptions into two types. One is checked exception and unchecked exception. And even checked exceptions we used to call it as a compile time exceptions. Unchecked exceptions we used to call it as a runtime exception. And we taken an example also at what time what is the which exception used to be called as a compile time exception, or which exception we are going to call as a runtime exception, or we are going to create as a runtime exception. What are the rules we have to remember, or what are the how to understand it, we taken an example. And the runtime exceptions comes only at while executing the program. So you can expect, so the exceptions, so the runtime exceptions may come or may not come, but even though it comes, it will come only at runtime level. So that means sometimes you can't expect that exception will come until you are executing the program. So once you are executing the program, maybe if any exception comes, then you will write a logic for handling that exception. But compile time exception is not like that. The moment you are writing the logic, so whenever you are compiling your program, compiler will give you always an exception, and compiler will force us to handle that exception, nothing but. So like for example, yesterday we taken file not found operation. So file operations, the moment you are doing anything like file operations, what will happen? So immediately it will force us to handle an exception called as file not found exception. So that is how the compiler is forcing, the compiler identified this exception, like compiler is saying there is a probability of getting an exception called as file not found exception in this case, because you are doing the file operation like that. So it is saying like handle the exception, compiler is giving this exception, and you have to handle that exception by using either try catch or throws option like that. But this exception comes at compile time. Now if you observe here, this you can't guess at compile time level, these kind of exceptions. I mean the exceptions which comes at runtime level is called as runtime exception or unchecked exceptions. Why unchecked? Because we can't check it. So this is checking, we are able to check. So that means compiler is giving very clearly what has to be done. So that's why this is called as checked exceptions. As a developer, we can check what kind of exception we may get, okay, before executing the program. That means while compiling itself, we know that what exception it will use. We are able to check it, but we can't uncheck. We I mean we can't check what kind of exception you will get with respect to runtime exceptions. It may come null pointer, it may come division, it may be index, any kind of exception based on the logic what you implemented. So we are not guarantee what kind of exception you are going to get, whether 100% you are going to get an exception or not. You can't guarantee. So that is how we are going to identify compile time versus runtime exceptions. Now after that we started understanding about handling the exception. So in Java language, to handle the exception, we have total 5 important keywords, whether it is a runtime exception or compile time exception. So whenever exception you want to handle an exception, that means you have to write a logic, you have to implement the logic for handling an exception. Nothing but whenever an exception occurs, whenever an exception is created, so what has to be done? That is what the concept of exception handling. Okay, so even yesterday we taken this one also, like the class which is extended from the runtime exception is called as runtime exception, which is not extended from the runtime and but extended from the exception is called as compile time exception like that. Okay, so here in this case exception handling is nothing but the moment if you got any exception, so handling an exception is nothing but exception handling, whether it is a compile time exception or runtime exception, it doesn't matter. If you want to handle the exception, you have to follow some techniques or you have to follow some rules and regulations. And to achieve that exception handling, so you have total 5 keywords. One is try, catch, finally, and throws and throw keyword. But out of these five, first three are we have started discussing about first three because the reason is the first three keywords are having interconnectivity in between one keyword to another keyword. So there is some dependency in between one keyword to another keyword or one keyword functionality to another keyword functionality. So these three keywords mostly we used to use together, okay, So how we are going to use together, and what are the rules and regulations available in between these three keywords to handle the exception, we have started understanding. So first, when it comes to the try block, so it's all about, I said yesterday, a regular Java logic, whatever we are going to write down in general. So we used to keep that logic as part of the try block. So that means even we can call it as something like business logic. So business logic means whatever the requirements you are implementing, right? Based on the requirement point of view. So this is all comes under the business logic. So whatever the business logic, whatever the logic you are trying to implement based on the requirement, a regular Java logic that you will keep inside the try block. So especially, usually, generally what we will do as part of the try block is, we as a developer we know that what lines may produce an exception in case if anything went wrong or any data is okay, if you given anything like some invalid data, so what might be failed, what may create an exception, like that we have an idea, right? So that logic usually will keep inside the try block. We will keep inside the try block. It's not like every logic you can keep inside the try block means, no, it's not like that. Anything you can keep it, but usually what lines may produce an exception, that area or that logic we used to keep inside the try block. So that means simply I can say like try block logic is going to produce always an exception. So which logic is going to produce an exception, that logic you have to keep inside the try block, inside the try block, then only you can handle the exception, then only you can handle the exception. So that kind of logic you will write inside the try block. And after that, one more rule I said, a try block, the moment you return the try block, the moment you return the try block, so individual try blocks is not possible in Java language, because what there is no point of writing individual try block, right? For example, earlier without try block, we written this logic and we got an exception here and we are seeing some, okay, we can't handle the exception. That's why JVM ignoring rest of the logic and JVM terminating the process. But I want to handle the exception. So that's why the logic I just moved inside the try block. And whenever an exception comes this time, okay, the moment an exception comes any line in between the logic of try block, at any point of time any exception comes, those exceptions, if you want to handle means, you have to go with always catch and final blocks. Okay, so and one more mandatory rule here it is, a try block should be associated with either catch or finally block or both. So that means you have to use along with try block catch block, or at least finally block you have to use, or you can use both also. So we'll see those things step by step process right now. So that is what we understood. Now, the moment we move to the catch block, what we understood here it is, catch block should be used always with the try block. So that means without, for example, without try, there is no catch. So why? Understand the terminology point of view also. What is the meaning of catch? Catch is all about catching the an exception. So when JVM got an exception, especially in this line, for example, what is happening in this case is immediately JVM is throwing an exception. So I said, right, exception is nothing but an object. So throwing an exception is nothing but JVM created an object for that respective exception class, okay, based on the exception reason, whatever it is, it will choose an exception class and it will create an exception object, and that exception object being forwarded to the catch blocks, forwarded to the catch block. So that means the moment JVM got an exception at line number 17, immediately it will jump to line number 28. It is jumping to the line number 28. So that means then JVM will understand, okay, this exception, the moment it got, it will enter inside the catch block and it will execute the logic as part of the catch block. Now what logic you will write inside the catch block is, whenever an exception comes, okay, what has to be done when exception comes, what logic has to be executed whenever an exception comes, that logic you will write always inside the catch block. So here the probability of executing catch block is sometimes 0%, 0 to 100%. Why? The reason is Assume your logic doesn't get any exception. You have non-zero value in this case, especially in this example. So value 2 is a not zero value, so non-zero value. So that means whenever value 2 is a non-zero value, definitely will not get any exception. So that whenever you are not getting an exception, then catch blocks never executed. So that means line executed successfully, next line, next line, next line. Once it is finished, end of the try block, then it will leave the catch block. I mean, it will not enter into catch block. It will move to the next of the catch block. So that means it will not touch the catch block. So simply what is the point you have to understand here? It is the moment catch block is executed, okay, catch block is executed only when exception comes from the try block logic. Otherwise, catch block will never execute. If there is no exception, catch block is not executed. Like that. Now, how to define a catch block means? So, catch block is always have a arguments, and catch block always takes an argument of exception type. So that means, for example, if you take in the catch block, I give an exception class, right? I can't give a regular Java classes here like this. For example, if you see here, string, I can't give this string. The reason is why? String is not an exception class. String is not an exception class. String is not extended from exception family. So that's why string is not a exception class. String is a non-exception class, a regular Java class. So that's why you can't use those kind of classes as part of the catch block. So the rule as part of the catch block is the class must and should be belongs to exception family. So that means it has to be derived from exception classes. Then only you can use it. For example, student point of view, no. Compile time you will get error. If you are extended again same class with exception class or exception family, any of the exception class family, like throwable, runtime exception, exception, then again you can use as part of the catch block. So that means overall what we have to understand here it is the catch block argument is always an exception type class. So this is all we discussed yesterday. So what is the summary points you have to remember here it is? These are all summary points guys, important points. Try block should associated with either catch or finally block, and catch block will be executed only when exception comes, otherwise catch block will not be executed. Okay, so these are all details we discussed yesterday, and let's continue from there only, and let's try to understand more rules about try, catch as well as finally also in today's session. Okay, so now if you go here, for example, I'm taking value 2 as a 10. Then what is our expectation in this case is, now this is the try block starting, this is the try block ending, this is the catch block. Immediately I write in after the catch guys. Okay, so you know that comments are never comes under the logic. Comments are ignorable. Comments are nothing but dead code. So that means compiler will not consider comments as a logic. Comments will not be considered by the compiler. That means you have to feel like after ending of the try, immediately catch is started. I may write in the comments. That's all. So that means now what will happen in this case? As part of this logic, this will be executed. Okay, value to 10. So 20, 20 printed, 0, 0 printed, 10 by 10, 0. So you will not see any exception in this case. So that means this line is also printed. Result is printed, and then this line is printed, and then this line is printed. Then see by the time of it is reaching to the end of try block, there is no exception. So that's why what will happen? It will move out of the catch blocks. It will move out of the catch block. So that means it will not enter into catch block. Why? That's what I said, right? So 0 to 100% is the probability of executing catch blocks. The reason is there is no exception, 0%. It will not enter into JVM, will not touch the catch block. So that is what handling an exception. You are handling an exception here. Handling means what? When exception occurs. If there is no exception occurred, then you can't do anything. It's like a backup plan. So if anything went wrong, like generally in our day-to-day life also, we'll create a backup plans. If something is goes in a different way, then we will think in a different approach, or we will have a backup plan. If everything is goes good as per plan, okay, like that. So that is how the catch block is executed. For example, now I'm writing a logic here. So it's sort of some logic outside of try catch block and end of main method, something like that. Okay. So now again, what will happen with respect to these lines outlines is, so you will see this line is also printed this time, but nothing from the catch block. What is happening here? Okay, I think it is from the previous one. Okay, so if I'm executing again here, see here, end of try block, that means this line, and there is no exception from the try batch try block. That means when it is executed logic in between the try block, JVM not found any exception, any runtime exception. That's why it enter into it is not entering into catch. It entered come from the, I mean, it is leaving the try catch. I can say like it is leaving the try catch and moved outside of the try catch. Nothing but the whatever the logic you written after the catch block. So end of catch block. So whatever the logic you written end of the catch block, after end of the catch block, then again that logic will be executed. So now here, if you have any rest of the logic, that is all the executed. Rest of the logic is executed. Now assume or rest of the logic when you are writing here. So for example, I have string name equal to something like Dilip, and I'm making some operations on the name, and I'm making some operations on name, then there might be a possibility of getting null pointer exception when you given name equal to null, right? So that means again here you can write try catch blocks like that. So wherever you want try catch blocks, you can write, guys. Simple thing is try catch blocks you can write. Okay, so like that. Okay, I'll come back to that. We'll see that how to write multiple try catch blocks, nested try catch blocks. So it's all our choice. Wherever you want to write try catch blocks by following the rules of try catch combination, contract, all these things, you can define wherever you want. Wherever you felt like some exception may come, there you can write down like that. Okay, fine. Now my next point is, if I'm taking the same try catch block again. Okay, so somewhat we understood how to write try catch blocks and everything. Fine. Okay, the point here it is. Um, okay, so let's see. I'm just making shorting these lines. Addition and division. Okay, fine. And the rest of the logic. Okay, so here string name equal to, I taken something like Dilip IT like this. Okay, and the moment I return sys out of name dot, okay, character at the position of index number 5. So what is the point of index? You know that, right? So it's all about 0 index, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 means empty, I mean space, 6, 7. So that means the index in this case is 0 to 7. You have maximum 0 to 7 length. So length is 8. That means 0 to 7 index. Okay. So the moment if I given until 7, there is no problem. So you will get T character now. In this case, T character will be printed. Right? So whether it is right or wrong, see. Yeah, if you observe the output, again in this case, yeah. So if you're seeing output in this case, what's happening? T got printed as per our expectation. Now if you given beyond 7, what will happen? You will get index out of bounds exception. For example, I given 9, 10, or whatever it is. There is no 9 index. So then what will happen? It comes under the compile time exception, sorry, runtime exception. So there might be a chance. That's what. The moment you are giving until 0 to 7, there is no exception. If you are beyond 7, there is a exception comes. Now my point is, you know that definitely an exception comes in this case. Okay, probably or like that. There is a probability of getting exception in this line at any point of time. So based on the value, so that's okay. Now my point is, in case an exception comes, when earlier no exception comes, end of try block, and it is reached to outside of the catch blocks. I mean, it is not touching the catch block. Now my next point is, in this case, assume, not assume, now you got an exception in this case. You are going to get an exception in this line. So in this line, there is no exception because of this, okay, valid value point of view. And whenever you got an exception here, you know that you got this line is executed. For example, see here, I'll make sure. So everything is good. 7 again I'll give. And I'll give value 2 as 0. So that means what will happen in this case? Again, this line executed, 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 divided by 0. So that means an exception comes here. So immediately JVM creates an exception object for the class called as arithmetic exception. With the reason internal, it is putting all the reasons, all the details. And then what happens immediately, I said, JVM immediately look for the catch block. So it will reach to the catch block. So that means in this case, again, as part of the try block, this logic is not executing, guys. Understand the point. So this logic is not executing. Why? The log you got exception at line number 13. And in the same try block, what it is doing, it's not executing the rest of the logic from the same try block. The reason is why JVM created an exception at line number 13, then immediately JVM looking for the, okay, moving to the catch block section. So that means this logic is not executed now. For line number 14 to 22, that will not execute. Why? It will jump immediately to the catch block. Why? It's got an exception. By taking that object, internally JVM calls passing that object to here, that exception object, and catch block started executing. So that means now you will see this line is executed, this line is executed, this line is executed, this line is executed. So in the output, you will see now until line number 12, whatever the output, as well as this output you will see. And once catch block execution is completed, then again it will move to the next line of the after the catch block. So that means this time what is happening in this case is the flow is moving to the next line even though you got an exception. But when in the try block point of view, you got an exception here, this logic will not execute. So that means what is the rule you have to remember? Again, here it is with respect to try blocks point of view. If any exception occurs, if any exception occurs in try block, okay, so immediately JVM reaches to catch blocks. So I'm using a word called as catch block section. I'll come back. What is the blocks? Block or blocks, I'll tell you. Simply I'm telling you, if any exception occurs in try block, immediately JVM reaches to catch blocks. That means nothing but, so that means from the try block, rest of the logic not executed. So the moment wherever it got an exception, it will immediately move to the catch block section. So that means JVM from the try block, rest of the logic is not executed by JVM. Rest of the logic is not executed by the JVM. So once it is reaching to the catch block, okay, after finding catch block, JVM executes it, and JVM moves to rest of the logic defined after catch block. Rest of the logic defined after the catch block. So that means based on these two statements, now what's happened? If you take in all these solutions, so you will get an exception. You are getting an exception here because of the zero value. So based on that, what is happening? Immediately it will move to the catch blocks. So whenever JVM jumping to the catch blocks, then this rest of the logic means you got exception at line number 30. So this logic is not executed from the try block, and it will execute the catch block. And then again, once try catch block is executed, then it will move to the next lines of the logic. So if you are having all other logic here, those are all things will be executed. So if you want, I can print this name also, something like that. So see here. So what happened? Addition of two values 10. So that's what we are expected. Until this, there is no exception. Line number 13, you got an exception. And then what happened? Immediately it went to catch block. So that's why in catch block, the reason is you got the reason and you printed the reason, right? Because divided by 0, and you given a message also, please make sure value 2 as non-zero value always, like you given a proper message also. That means you handle the exception. You handle the exception such a way like you found the reason, you given the reason, and you are giving a what has to be done. Going further to avoid that exception, you given the messages also. And as well as what is the important thing here, it is the rest of the logic is executed. In earlier case, what happened if you got an exception at line number 13, for example, the rest of the logic is never ever executed. Immediately JVM terminating the process and saying like you got an exception. Now, because of handling an exception by the catch block, what happened? So it's all about you are able to see this logic is got executed. So that means only the try block point of view, some of the logic is skipped, but not entire logic. Then it is moving to the next, and you are seeing like outside of the try catch block, the leap. So this line is executed, this is executed, this is executed like that. So that is the beauty of exception handling. Now, my point is, okay, so that is clear. Now I am giving again value, something non-zero value, I given 20 or whatever it is, fine. So the until, I mean, you given non-zero value means you will not get any exception here. Still you kept this logic in the try block. Now I am executing this logic again. So what will happen? Executed, 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 executed. Once it is found end of the try block, it will come outside of the catch block. It will execute the logic after the catch block. So it will not touch the catch block. 0% this time catch block is executed because there is no exception in this case. So that means now the output what you will see after end of try catch block line, you will see this line and the rest of the logic whatever available, that logic you will see. That means you can't see this logic is not executed. 0%. Why? No exception. So that is what the point we have to understood as of now. When exception comes, then only catch block coming into the picture. Okay, that is also cool. So see here, calling other methods t end of try block, and then it is moving outside of the try catch blocks, and then rest of the logic is executed. Okay, cool. Now my point is, for example, here I given some invalid value or whatever it is. Now understand the point. I said right now as of one point, whenever an exception comes, immediately JVM reaches the catch blocks, right? And JVM execute the catch block. So when catch block will be executed whenever an exception comes. So whenever an exception comes from the try block, then immediately what will happen? JVM looking for the catch blocks. Now understand the point. Something is going to happen, and what and all, first understand, and then we will see the solution and we'll observe the thing, what it is. Now what happened in this case? Why are you seeing this kind of unhandled exception scenario? So that means That's what our agenda of exception handling, right? You can't see this kind of, we can't print these kind of things. We have to handle the exception and we have to make sure rest of the logic is executed. That means this outside of the try catch block below Dilip is there, that and all should be executed. That is what our agenda of exception handling. Wherever exception comes, that has to be skipped or that has to be ignored, but rest of the logic should be executed. So that means 100 percentage always this logic should be executed. Whether exception comes or not, it doesn't matter, but after line number 33 everything should be executed. Even though exception comes, even though exception not coming, you have to make sure always this logic is executed. But if you observe here, it not happened this time. So not happened this time. Why? The reason is, see, you get in the you written the catch block, but why it's not handled? So understand the reason now. Yeah. So what is the reason? Just try to understand. Yeah. So I define two variables in the same line. So yeah. Now see here. What is the point here? It is. Yeah. So this is the logic, and you return try block, right? Yeah. Okay. So here this lines executed, that means value 1, value 2 values became 20. 10 plus 20 30. So 30 will be printed here, and 10 by 20 means probably you may get something like 0.5 or something like that. Okay, that is also clear because there is no exception in this case. Here in this line number 13, the 12, especially in this case, you are not getting any exception because it's a non-zero value. So that means this logic is good this time. And it will come to the next line, and it will come to this line also. That means name variable is assigned with the Dilip IT, and then you are saying like character at ninth position, but actually you have until 0 to 7 indexes. There is no ninth index. Then JVM, what it will do, it will, in this case JVM found like you given invalid index out of the range. So then immediately what JVM will create an exception here. What exception it is creating? So in earlier case, when you got divided by 0 here, it created an exception called as arithmetic exception. It created an exception called as arithmetic exception. You are doing arithmetic operation, you got a specific exception, a predefined exception, arithmetic exception is there. That is what created immediately by JVM. And then by taking that object, it is reaching to the catch block section. That is what I said, right? Now in this case, what happens? Right now, you got an exception but not arithmetic exception. In this case, the exception is string index out of bounds exception. String index out of bounds exception. So string index out of bounds exception. For example, see here, string index out of bounds exception. So now what will happen? By taking this exception object of string index out of bounds exception, immediately JVM jump to catch block section. Catch block section. So that means after try, end of the try, you will write catch blocks, right? So by taking this line, by taking, I mean at this line, by taking that exception object, it will reach to the catch blocks. But what is the problem in this case is, you defined a catch block, okay? But what? That catch block is eligible for handling only what exception? Arithmetic exception. But you got an exception, what? String index out of bounds exception. So that means this catch block is eligible to handle only arithmetic exception, but not any other exception. So in this case, the catch block will handle same exception in general, whatever you define the catch block, right? So it will define same exception or child exceptions, child class exception. So if any exception got which is a child class of this exception class, then also it will execute the catch block. But in this case, you got completely individual exception. Other exception called as string index out of bounds exception. And this is not a child for this exception as well as not similar to arithmetic exception. So that's why what it is doing is JVM, this catch block is not matching. It will observe this catch block argument. Okay, not matching. Then it will check is there any other catch block available or not. What it will verify? If the moment it is not matching, it will check any other catch block available or not. Catch block associated to string index out of bounds exception object. So in this case, you don't have any other catch block. So that's why what Java is doing in this case is, what JVM is doing is, now it comes under a normal regular scenario. So you don't have a handling logic. You got an exception, but this time you don't have no logic for handling an exception. So that's why JVM decided this guy not handle this time exception. Let me leave the execution flow. Immediately what it is doing is after verifying the catch blocks, no catch block found, okay, then immediately it is terminating the process. That means execution flow is terminated and JVM leaving the process. It's not executing rest of the logic. If you observe here, as per our scenario, it should execute this logic, but it's not executing. Why? Exception comes, but as a developer, you are not written a logic to handle that exception, to specific to that exception. So then JVM felt like this guy is not handling the exception. Yes, definitely we don't have a handling logic exception. So then JVM terminating the process at line number 19 itself and not executing anything also. Why? There is no respect to catch block. If there is a respective catch block available, then it will enter into catch block and it will execute the catch block, and then it will come out peacefully from that catch block and it will execute rest of the logic. But this time catch block not found. Catch block not found. So that's why if you observe here, this line and calling other methods, that means this line is executed, but here you got an exception. So this is not executed, this is not executed, this is not executed. Nothing is executed. Here itself JVM throwing an exception to us in this process and JVM leaving the process. Why? There is no matching exception found with respect to catch blocks. So that means what we have to do now. So now can I say like I write down string index out of bounds exception? Okay. So now what will happen? Understand? I modified my catch block to the string index out of bounds exception. So what will happen this time? Let's execute the process first. Now you may understand the story. Now you have a logic of handling an exception called as index out of bounds exception. No exception, no exception, no exception, no exception, no exception. Cool, cool. Here an exception comes. What exception? Like string index out of bounds exception, right? Then immediately what JVM is doing as per our discussion at this line number 19 onwards, it will check for catch blocks. Is there any exception? Is there any catch block defined for this string index out of bounds exception or not? Yes, it is defined. That's why what it is doing, it is entering into catch block, executed this, executed this, executed this, executed this, and execute. Then once catch block is executed, all lines of catch block executed, then peacefully JVM moving to the next lines of the outside of the catch blocks also. So that way you are seeing this one, everything is printed as expected. But my point is, tomorrow again, if you got zero value here, what will happen? So now see, I'm making again value 2 as 0. Again value 2 as 0. So now this time what will happen? Based on our logic expectation, executed, executed, executed. So here problem comes again, exception comes. Why? Divided by 0. So what exception? Arithmetic exception. Now by taking this arithmetic exception object, it will come to the catch blocks. From this line number, it will reach to the catch blocks. This time exception is string index out of bounds exception. So that means not matching. Not matching. Then what is happening? Immediately JVM terminating the process, stopping the execution and throwing that exception message to console level. Throwing that exception message to console. And it's not executing rest of the logic also. So why? There is no specific catch block this time because you modify it to string index. See, that's why only this line is printed and at line number 13 level, sorry, 12 level, something you got and rest of the logic is not executed, catch block is not executed because not matching, and even this logic also not executed. So then what you have to do? Yes, in this case, Java provided something like we can write more than one catch blocks, more than one catch block for a try block. So what is the point? We can write more than one catch block for a try block. So now understand the point. Okay, so I'm bringing back to arithmetic exception, right? So now this catch block is responsible for what? Dealing with arithmetic exception. But my logic sometimes may produce index out of bounds exception. Index out of bounds exception. So that means I told you one more point also, right? When JVM checking for catch block, when an exception occurs, when JVM checking for catch block, whenever exception occurs, okay, what it will verify is, it will check like, okay, JVM checks like same type of exception argument. So same exception type argument, I can write like this, same exception type argument, or it will check for parent type also. So that means the moment you got an exception in the try block, it will reach to the catch block section and it will check, is there any catch block defined with same exception type or at least its parent. Whatever the exception you got, its parent exception, parent class type. So it will check for parent type. So in this case, if JVM found, if JVM found same type argument catch block, that will be executed. That will be executed. Okay, fine. And second point is, if JVM found parent type also, parent type argument catch block, parent type argument catch block, that will be executed. In case if not found same type. Even same and parent both not found, then again, okay, so that means even JVM, if JVM not found same and parent type argument catch block, then JVM terminates the process. JVM terminates the execution flow and rest of the logic not executed. And rest of the logic is not executed. So this is the points you have to remember in this exception handling. All these are all, that's what I said. It's very important topic and you have to remember all these rules. So based on my point, right now I got arithmetic exception. Yes, my logic is having arithmetic exception. But if I got some reason, any point of time index out of bounds exception, then what I have to do? Okay. So I said right now Java is allowing to write more than one catch block for a type try block. So let's follow this rule and implement the things. So that means A try block may have more than one catch block. So that is the rule here it is. So let's define one more catch block. So how to write one more catch block is the catch block, first catch block starting, ending, right? After that you have to write one more catch block. So one more catch block you have to write again. So here what you have to take? Exception type argument. Exception type argument. So you are already handling arithmetic exception. Now, for example, based on this logic, you are expecting two types of exception. Maybe arithmetic exception, maybe index out of bounds exception. So arithmetic exception point of view, you are handling the things. Now you want to handle an exception related to index out of bounds exception. Yes. Now write that. So string index out of bounds exception, right? So then you can take some reference variable again here. You can take anything guys here. E, A, B, C variable name, object reference name simply. Because finally what coming here when when you are executing the program, an object only. Object of this exception class. Finally object. And to refer that object you need a reference. So that's why you can take any variable name here. Now the same thing here it is. Now what I will do in catch block of this, I'll copy paste this line and I will modify the logic. So see here e dot get message in catch block of string index out of bounds exception, and yeah, so I'm getting a reason message from that exception object, and I'm printing it as a reason also. And please make sure index under the range of length of string, something like that, under the range of length of string, something you can give a meaningful message there like that. So now what will happen in this case? Total, your try block is having two catch blocks. So you can write multiple. So you can write n number of catch blocks. N number of catch blocks. N number of catch blocks you can write. Okay, so one try block, but two catch blocks. So what will happen in this scenario? Again, here it is. Same rule. So when exception comes, JVM check for the catch blocks. And if any matching exception argument found or at least parent type is found, then catch block will be executed. Even same type not found as well as parent type also not found, then JVM feels like no exception handling, like that it will terminate the process. It will give an error like this and it will not execute rest of the logic. But now see what will happen. Even though you got arithmetic exception here, what will happen? You got arithmetic exception here. Then JVM jumps directly to catch block section. So it is checking is there any catch block available for the arithmetic exception or not. Yes, available. So available. So arithmetic exception point of view, an object is available, right? Catch block is available. So then what will happen? This catch block will be found for the arithmetic exception because you got arithmetic exception because of zero value. If you given zero here, right? Then this catch block will be executed. This entire catch block will be executed. Now in this case, this catch block will not be executed. Only one catch block will be executed. Even though you are having multiple catch blocks, at a time only one catch block will be executed. Because why? You got an exception here at line number 12, JVM jumping immediately to the catch block section. It's not executing rest of the logic from the try block. Try block. So it is moving to the catch block section. It is moving to the catch block section and finding the arithmetic exception. That is what executed. So once that catch block is executed, then it will leave all out, okay, end of the all try catch blocks. It will go for end of all try catch blocks. So it will come here and it will execute rest of the logic. So let's give the 0. See, divided by 0 in catch block of arithmetic exception, divided by 0. Make sure value 2 as non-zero outside of the try block. So what's happening? It is executing once this end of catch block, it will not consider again other catch blocks because you found your expected exception block that will be executed and it will leave all the catch blocks and it will execute rest of the logic. Now similarly, if I given here something non-zero value, what will happen? This time you got an exception here. So this time you will get an exception here. What exception? String index out of bounds exception. So then the moment you got an exception here, from line number 19, it will move to the catch block section. It will verify which catch block is responsible for string index out of bounds exception. What is this one? No. Is this one? Yes. So same type, right? String index out of bounds exception, string index out of bounds exception. Yes. JVM found this catch block and then enter into this catch block, executed this line, this line, this line, this line. So finally catch block is found. That means you are handling the exception for that exception. Then it will lead to the rest next line of the outside of all the catch blocks. So that means it will execute this logic again this time. So see here, this time you are handling both arithmetic and as well as string index out of bounds exception. See, in catch block of string index out of bounds exception, index 9 out of bounds for length 8. So and you are giving a message like please make sure index number under the range of length only, not beyond the length. So you given the message and you are given the reason also what has to be done and execute the rest of the logic. So you executed rest of the logic which is available outside of the catch blocks. So what is the point you have to understand here? It is even though many catch blocks available, okay, at a time one catch block is executed which is associated to an exception occurred from try block logic. So whatever the exception occurred from the try block logic associated to that exception, if any catch block is available, that catch block will be executed. Okay, even though many catch blocks available, at a time only one catch block will be executed, guys. Only one catch block is executed. So there is no possibility of at any point of time there is no possibility of executing two blocks at a time. There is no possibility in Java. Okay, no possibility of executing two blocks at a time, two or more blocks at a time. Two or more blocks at a time. Two or more catch blocks at a time. So now tomorrow if you are having any logic here, assume something you are writing one more logic here, some logic, some other logic, something, some values you are taking or whatever it is. For example, array operations. Okay, so now in this case, I'm taking some array. Let's take like integer, something numbers or whatever it is, IDs equal to some in okay, some array I taken. I'm taking some values also as part of this 1 comma 20 comma 55 comma 66 comma something. I taken some values here. Okay, it's an array, integer array. Okay, cool. So now again here, whenever I'm trying to read values from the array, there is a possibility. What is that? Length is 5. So that means 0 to 4 index. So until 4 index I'm giving in between 0 to 4, there is no exception. Right? So ID saw 4 also I can. So what will happen? 99 will be printed in this case. 99 value is picked up here and that is what printed next. That is okay. But my point here it is, okay, here also I'll make sure 5 index or 6 index I given. So that means what will happen now, my logic point of view, no exception, no exception, no exception, no exception, no exception, no exception, no exception. Here also no exception because we given within the limit index. So definitely you will see I as the output in this case. No exception finally. No exception because only array initialization. You given within the range 4 index. Yes, no exception. No exception. So that's why it is reaching try catch block. Then this catch block will not be executed as well as this catch block will not be executed. Why? Both are not executed. I mean, not both. Any one of them is not executed. Why? There is no exception. So that means immediately what JVM is doing, the moment successfully it is reaching to the try block of end of the try block, it will ignore all the catch blocks. It will come back to the logic where available outside of all catch blocks. Next to the catch blocks, I can say like next to the catch blocks. Even though n catch blocks available, so directly it will jump here because there is no exception. So that's why I don't want to look for handling an exception. So successfully I'm good everything from first line to last line of the try block. So then no need to worry about catch blocks. JVM will not at all worry about the catch blocks. It will move to the logic available outside of the catch blocks or rest next to the catch blocks. So that's why this logic will be executed and below logic will be executed. See here. See, division you got successfully from Dilip IT I value you got and 19 from the array 99 you got. So that means end of try block. Everything is good until last line of the try block. So that's why it is moving, reaching here and it execute the rest of the logic. That is okay. Now again, my point is, if I given some invalid value here, if I give an invalid value, what will happen? So you know that again, in this case, what will happen? 4 index is the last, but you given 5th index. So JVM is found like invalid index and you know that you will get an exception called as array index out of bounds exception. Array index out of bounds exception. Why? In earlier it is a string operations you are doing string index out of bounds. Now you are doing array point of view array index out of bounds exception. You may get it. Until you given valid index, there is no exception comes. If you given invalid index, there is a probability of getting this exception. Now, the moment assume now JVM created array index out of bounds exception, but you don't have any catch block for that array index out of bounds exception. So that means until this everything is good. When it comes exception got created with array index out of bounds exception, but there is no catch block, then what JVM will do? No catch block means immediately it will terminate the process. It will terminate the process. That means it will not worry about rest of the logic. So because you are not handling the exception, whenever you are not handling an exception, then immediately JVM jumps to the rest of the logic. I mean, JVM will stop the execution flow and leaves the flow and it will not execute rest of the logic. That is what the point with respect to try and catch. Now let's execute it and see here. See what happened until this line. Okay, you're good. That is expected. Now at line number 23, because of line number 23, you got array index out of bounds exception. Array index out of bounds exception. So you have arithmetic exception, string index out of bounds exception, but you don't have array index out of bounds exception. So that's why you got that problem. Now what you can do, you can write one more catch block. So what you have to do, out of bounds exception, like that you written the thing. Now what will happen? You have a specific catch block for array index out of bounds exception also. And please make sure index under the range of length of array. Something you written a message like this. Now what will happen? As per my explanation, arithmetic exception, sorry, array index came, then immediately it will jump to the catch block section by taking this object type. What exception object got created? Array index out of bounds exception object. Then it will check is there any catch block associated to this exception type. Not matching, not matching, matching. Yes, then enters here, executes, 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 executes. Then see peacefully it executed the catch block. It found the handling. It found even though exception comes, exception is handled in this case. So that's why it peacefully it will leave that catch blocks and leaves, okay, goes to the logic which is available immediately after all the catch blocks. So that means immediately it will come to this line 53 point of view. So that is how you can write multiple catch blocks associated to one single try block, and based on the exceptions what you may get, based on that you can write multiple catch blocks. Multiple catch blocks. See here now what will happen. See now you got array index out of bounds exception in catch block index range. So you given all the things, and if you observe here outside of the try catch blocks of, okay, outside of the try catch blocks. So that's why I used a word called as blocks. Okay, so this is how you have to write try catch blocks. I'm not discussed as of now finally. I'll involve finally. Okay, so we will see together catch, try catch finally also. But first understand the rules of all catch blocks point of view with respect to try. Okay, now this is all cool until and unless you are not getting any exception point of view. Now I given 4 here. That means everything is valid. Valid, valid, no exception. So nothing will happen with respect to catch. It comes here. All happy path. So it's all about happy path. Say addition happened, division happened, you got index string happened, array index happened, successfully try block is executed, and no exception means no catch blocks executed. So it is moving to the logic of outside of the catch block. So this is the scenario we discussed. My next point is, okay, let's make any summary of here. Yeah, now it's all no possibility of executing two more, even though many catch blocks available at a time. One catch block, okay, once catch block is executed, which is associated to an exception occurred from the try block. Anytime one catch block is executed like that. So please make sure all the summary points being practiced and remembered also. Okay, now let's come back to one more point. What is my point here? It is I take one more class so that you can keep this as a practice, and I'll do, I'm taking one more class operations 2 something like that. Okay, so just same logic only, I just copy pasted so that I can do some few more things in here. Okay, now see here, this is all good. It will execute as expected and you got this output. Now my point is, assume again I got value 2 as 0. Again user given value 2 as 0. Now what will happen guys in this case? As per our explanation point of earlier, here problem comes. So here an exception comes. The moment exception comes, what will happen? This logic is not executed. This is not executed. Why? That's what the rule we understood. The moment if you got any exception from the try block logic at any level, at any line, immediately it will move to the catch block section. It's not like once it is executed the catch blocks and it will come back to the try block. No. So that means what is the point you have to understand is, again here, so an exception occurred, when an exception occurred from try block, okay, JVM moves to catch block section and found associated exception and found associated catch block. It is execute, catch block will be executed, but okay, and executed, but JVM will not come back to try block again. So understand the point. So it's not like JVM is going to come back to the try block. So here my point is, exception comes here, line number 12, and it found arithmetic exception. It is executed this line number 30 to 35. Okay, and again JVM is not going to coming back and executing rest of the logic. No, only once JVM leaving the try block, okay, then it will never, I mean, it will not come back to the same try block once catch block is executed. It will not happen. That is what my point here it is. So see here, what happened? You got an exception here and it moved here. This is executed, but it's not like this logic is not executed. So that means it's not coming back. It is moving forward. This catch block is executed means successful. It is leaving, moving to the rest of the logic available after the catch blocks. So that's why after this line, please make sure value 2 is non-zero, outside leap value, whatever it is printed. So that is what happens. Now my point is, okay, if I got an exception, then this logic is not executing. But it should not be, right? I want to make sure if exception comes here, ignore only this line. Why we have to ignore these lines? Why we have to make sure this logic is not executed? I want to make sure this logic is also executed. This logic is also executed. So even though exception comes, make sure this is individually handled. And this operation 1, operation 2, operation 3. Operation 1 is failed, then why are you affecting that? Because of that operation 1, why are you not executing operation 2 and operation 3? It's not a good thing, right? So then what you have to do? How can I rewrite this logic? So see here, what we can do? Yes, now what I will do? I'll take this logic. Okay, so operation 1, operation 2, right? And this is operation 3, right? Okay, what I'm doing is just I'm writing individual try catch blocks. So that means now what I will do, operation 1 point of view, what division you are doing. So that means division you are doing here. If any problem comes here, okay, if any problem comes here, then it will move to the respective catch block. But this time you written this logic here, right? Now what I will do, same, write this logic again in another try block. You can write any number of try blocks. That's what I said. Now control X. So what I'm doing, name and index point of view. So in this case, you may get what? Index out of exception. Now let's make catch block is available. Here it is. Similarly, what you can do, write this logic is also into under another try block. You can write any number of try blocks, try catch blocks. That's what. The moment you return try, you have to maintain catch or finally, but right now we are discussing about catch block, right? So I return my catch block here. Now understand the logic, overall logic, what I did. I return what I did. So I'll remove this one also. Yeah. So now understand logic, what will happen. Operation 1 division. Operation 2 point of view. What something string operations I am doing. Operation 3 point of view. Array operations I am doing. Something like that. So now in this case, arrays point of view. Now what is the advantage of this? See, when earlier point what happened, you got arithmetic exception. Because of that arithmetic exception, you are not executed string operation and array operation. That's not a good thing, right? So now see what will happen. Again, JVM starts executing from here. Executes, executes, exception comes here. Which exception? Arithmetic exception. Then immediately what JVM will do? JVM will reach to the associated catch block of that respective try block. Then yes, arithmetic exception is there. Then this will be executed, this will be executed, this will be executed, executed. Now what I said, the moment it found catch block and executed successfully, it will move to the next line of the catch blocks of that respective try block. So what is the next line? This is the line. So then again one more try block. So then again what JVM will do? It will enter immediately into try block. So executed 6, very good, there is no exception. So that means no try block is executed. Why? There is no exception. You will not get any exception. No exception means now this time catch block not executed. So whenever catch block is not executed, what will happen again? JVM jumps here. So that means the moment this line is executed, no exception. No exception means no catch block. So then immediately it will come to the outside of the okay, the next logic of catch block. So what is the next logic of catch block? Whatever you have, that is what. Now it will come here. It is entering into this try block. Executed this, yes, within the range, again no exception. So in this case, this time probably you will not get any exception because you given valid index. So no exception means no catch block executed. So again what will happen? Successfully try block is executed means it will come back here. So see here how I written the logic now. If you observe here what happened, yes, this time I have a problem here and I handled here and I can see that logic here. If you see here, this is where addition of two values, division not happened, you got arithmetic exception because you given 0 division value and you given message like please provide value to as non-zero. Cool. After that, this logic is executed successfully and I you got here and 99 you got because of this line. That means there is no exception in this case, and it is executed rest of the logic. Now tomorrow if you got an exception here, for example, in this case also you got an exception. You given something like 99 or whatever it is. There is no 99 index. So what will happen? Same rule again. So again what will happen? Executed, exception. The moment exception got, you already handle arithmetic exception. It will come back here and it will execute this catch block. Assume you are not handle an exception with same type. Then what will happen? JVM will leave the process and it will not execute rest of the logic. So that means my point is, assume here you are getting arithmetic exception. Maybe probably here you handled something like index out of bounds exception. There is no relationship, right? You got arithmetic exception, but you written catch block associated to the try block. What will happen? It will create an exception here called as arithmetic exception because of divided by 0. But there is no catch block found for the arithmetic exception. No catch block. Then what happened? JVM is feeling like this guy not handle this exception. So I don't have anything in my hands like that. It will not moves to the next lines. So that means what is the key point you have to remember here? It is definitely as a developer, we have to make sure an associated exception catch block is available always. Otherwise, there is no concept of, otherwise you are making again the logic something like where you are not handling the exception. So in this case, no exception found. Then what JVM will do is, the moment no exception found, it will feel like this guy not handle an exception of arithmetic exception associated to this try block. It will terminate the entire process and it will leave by giving that message. So that's why you have to be very careful what exceptions you are going to get. See here, what happened to this? Nothing is happened. Nothing is executed. Why? There is no specific catch block available. So that's why you have to be very careful when you are handling the exceptions so that then only rest of the logic is available, executed, even the exception comes. Now what will happen again? Yes. So executed, exception comes, arithmetic exception, found same catch block, then executed this, then it will move to the, so end of the catch block, right? So it will move to the next lines of that catch blocks because peacefully exception comes, you handled, found the catch block, executed, and JVM moves to the next line of catch block. So then again one more try block. So executed, again exception. What exception? string operation you are doing, string index out of bounds exception. Yes, available. Then again this catch block will be executed. Again this catch block will be executed. Once this catch block executed, then JVM moves to the next line. Again you return one more try block. So again operation, valid operation, 99 will be printed. So that means no catch block is executed because no exception. And then peacefully try block is executed and it will execute this. So that means what is our expectation now? This catch block executed, this catch block is executed, and this logic executed but not catch block because no exception. And this will be executed. See here, arithmetic exception, string index out of bounds exception. Tomorrow if you got one more exception here also, like for example you given 9. Now total 3 places you got an exception. Here exception, here exception, here exception, and everything. See, total 3 exceptions, arithmetic, string, all these things point of view. You handle the exception. So this is how you can write your own you can write try catch blocks, any number of try catch blocks, wherever you want, inside a method, any number of times you can write. You can make into pieces. See, now when comparing with first solution, my second solution is very good solution. Why? Because you made very segregated the logic in a way associated to that exception, only that catch blocks point of view. So something like that. In this case, you kept all the logic in one try and you maintained all the catch blocks at one place. So that what is the problem in this case is maybe if some exception comes here, this logic is not executed, but it's not right. So that's why what I made it into a small try catch blocks with respect to every individual possible operation and possible exception, whatever comes there, I written that logic like that. Now if you have few more things associated to this try block logic here, maybe some other operations you are doing on the array itself, after this maybe if you are having any kind of other operations, you can write one more catch block here. You can write one more catch block here. So that is how you have to write down the try catch blocks and you have to make sure. Now let's come back to one more example. Operations 2, operations 3 I will take. So one more point I'm discussing right now. Understand here. Yeah, so I'm taking again old logic. Okay, so what it is? 3 operations at place and you written 3 catch blocks, right? Fine. Mm, yeah, so just to understand this point again. So this is a new point what I'm going to discuss right now. See here. Your answer is comes from here. So whatever the point I'm discussing, it will come from here. So see here what it is. Now, okay, this is all cool. Value 6, okay, cool. 4, cool. So that means everything is good. Fine. Everything is okay, fine. Now my point is, assume I'm writing one more thing here, some other operation, some other logic I'm implementing in the same try block. For example, I taken string course equal to null. Somehow my course value became null. Now sys out of course dot to uppercase, something like that. Okay. So now understand what will happen. Until this, there is no exception. It comes here, course equal to null. And you know that on null, if you are doing any operation, immediately you will get the null pointer exception. Right? So let's execute this, run as Java exception. So what happened? Until this, there is no issue. That's why you got everything. And you got null pointer exception here. But you don't have specific null pointer exception catch block. So that's why what happened, immediately this exception is thrown by the JVM and terminate the process, and this logic is not executed. That we know that. So that means your solution is what now? You will say, sir, add one more catch block with null pointer exception, so that even though null pointer exception comes, then that is also handled. Yes, that is right. So I'll take null pointer exception here. So in the catch block of null pointer exception, reason you will give, please make sure value as not null. Something that means some value, real value is existed like that. Whatever it is, message. Now what will happen? Null pointer exception came and that catch block found. So that's why entered into null pointer exception catch block. So and you given message also, please make sure not null, and this rest of the logic is executed. This is okay. Now my point is, understand this scenario. What I'm doing in this case is, I'm taking operation for class name. Okay, so see here what I'm trying to do here, it is in this class. Not like that. Do one thing. Yeah, continuation to this, I'll discuss few more points tomorrow also. Just one small point we'll discuss and we'll close the session. Okay, so see here now, this is my logic now. This is the logic I have now. So in try block total, I have 4 operations I'm doing. So something maybe arithmetic exception comes, string index out comes, array index comes, null pointer exception comes. So probability of 4 exceptions, right? Now in this case, if I got arithmetic exception, you have specific catch block and it is executed. Fine, that you know that. For example, if you see here, I'll give value 2 as 0. So that means executed, exception comes. In this case, exception comes. What exception? Divided by 0 means arithmetic exception. So what JVM will do, immediately jumps to the catch block section. How many catch blocks you have this time? 1, 2 catch blocks. And what it will do, what I said right now, a rule, JVM checks for same type of exception, same or parent, same or parent. So now it is checking what exception, arithmetic exception. Yes, you have a catch block for the arithmetic exception. Then it will enter into that catch block. It will execute that rest of the logic. And then once one catch block is executed, I said it will leave all the, it will move next lines of the all catch blocks of associated to that try block. So that means once this block is executed, it will come here and it will execute it. That is what our expectation. See here, yes, that's what happened. It entered into arithmetic exception. It entered into arithmetic exception and executed outside. That means this logic is also executed. Right? Fine. Now my point is, okay, this is good now. So with this values, what will happen? This is good. This is good. This is good. This is good. No exception because not a 0 value. This is also good. 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 This is also good because within the range you are given. And here null and null, on top of null you are doing some operation. What will happen? The moment whenever, in this case, this time, okay, in this case what will happen? In this line number 26 point of view, you are getting an exception called as null pointer exception. Null pointer exception. But the problem here it is, whenever it got null pointer exception in this line number level, null pointer exception it got. Object, null pointer exception. So it is what JVM will do immediately from line number 26. It will jump to catch block section. It will check catch block is matching with null pointer exception, not matching. Then it will go to the next catch block. Is it matching with null pointer exception? No. That means what will happen? Is it going to, so that means it coming here, not matching. Then it will come here. I mean, that means no specific catch block, no specific catch block found. So that's why is it going to terminate the entire execution flow and this logic is not executed. See what's happening here it is. If you observe here, this time, even though you got null pointer exception, even though you got null pointer exception, yeah, so this is what. Even though we got null pointer exception, even though there is no catch block associated to null pointer exception, see, you know that very clearly you got null pointer exception, but there is no catch block for null pointer exception. But still, why it is executed this one? What is the reason? What is the reason executed this? This is executed. If you observe here, execution, uppercase, make sure value is not null, something like that. Whatever it is, you got the message, very clear message here it is. Because course is null, that's why you got null pointer exception, right? So how do you know how it is executed this one? There is no null pointer exception, but why it is executed this thing? So what is the point I said right now? JVM checking for same exception type of argument, okay, or it will check for parent type. Same exception type or at least parent type. If JVM found same type, then that catch block will be executed. So that's why in previous example, in this case, when you got arithmetic exception, it found same exactly. So preference given to the same one. So that's why it is executed. And it is moving to this rest of the logic. But this time, null pointer exception you got. There is no catch block available for null pointer exception, but exception is the class parent for all exception classes. If you go to the diagram of yesterday's one, what guys? Exception is the parent of all other exceptions. See, null pointer exception, arithmetic exception, illegal, index out of bounds, array index, string index, whatever you taken, the topmost parent is what? Exception. So that means it not found exactly null pointer, but it found parent type. So that's why it started executing this block in case of null pointer exception. In case of null pointer exception. Now see here, I'm making this value something like apple apple or whatever it is. Okay, Python apple or whatever it is. Okay. So now what will happen? There is no exception. Nowhere, no exception. No exception, no exception, no exception, no exception. No catch block is executed. That we all know that. See, no exception, everything is good. Fine, that's okay. Now my point is, you got an exception this time here. 9 index you given. So what exception? Array index out of bounds exception. But do you have catch block of array index out of bounds exception? No. But now in this case, a catch block will be executed or not? My question. So a catch block will be executed or not? My program is going to be executed successfully or not? That means a catch block is going to be executed or not? That is what my question. Is it going to be executed? Yes. It is going to be executed. Why? For every exception class, exception is a parent. So that's why it not found array specific, but found parent one. So that means the moment it got array index out of bounds exception here, It is checking with this type any catch block available or not. If available, that one will be executed. If not available, it will check for parent type. Yes, parent type is available, so that's why this one will be executed. Now assume same type is not available, parent type is not available, then JVM throws an except. JVM will terminate the process. JVM will wrap up the execution flow and it will not execute this one also. So in this case, it found parent. So that's why run as Java application C. Even though you got index problem here, this catch block is executed. This catch block is executed. And the rest of the logic is executed. Now, can you guess and tell me? So out of all four operations, division, string index, array index, null pointer point of view, if any exception comes, this entire try block, any kind of exception, now my logic is going to be supported or not. I'm able to handle every exception or not. From this logic, can you tell me I'm able to handle every exception or not? By any chance, any exception misses? For example, you got null pointer exception, arithmetic exception, array index out of bounds exception, string index out of bounds exception, illegal argument exception, something like that. So that means like all this null pointer, arithmetic, class case, okay, index out of bounds, illegal argument exception, number format, whatever it is. Now any kind of exception comes, even this exceptions also. Any exception comes from this range, anything is going to missed? No. Why? You are made a generic exception handling. Like you felt like you are as a person, as a lazy person, what we did here it is, I felt like, hey, okay, array index, sorry, arithmetic exceptions, string exceptions, array exceptions, null pointer exceptions, whatever comes, it doesn't matter for me. I return a topmost parent exception block. So what will happen? Arithmetic exception, checking, not available, but parent is available, execute it. Okay, so similarly, string index not available, but parent is available, execute same thing. Array index not available, but parent is available, execute this. Null pointer not available, but parent is available. So that means for any exception, this block will be executed always. This block will be executed always. See here, I made non-zero, so this will be good. I'll make here index range something like 60. Yes, definitely this will fail here. String index out of bounds exception. Run as Java application. See here. For everything, catch block is executed. Why? You given a top parent exception block. So that's why it is saying like index out of bound and finally it executed that catch block or not. Yes. So this is the way you have to handle the exception. So you can write individual catch blocks associated to that exception like this. Okay. And you can write like this also, like associated try catch blocks for every operation point of view. So this is the one way also you can write. It depends on the requirement point of view, how many ways, how you're making into pieces of try catch blocks based on your requirement point of view, what and all you will try to do all these techniques. Okay, so this is all for today, but tomorrow continuation to this only, we have to discuss one more point also, exception classes hierarchy, and I'll discuss that. So we will see that. Monday, nothing but exception catch block, exception classes hierarchy of catch blocks. I'll discuss this point, and then finally block. So we are almost done with the try and catch, guys. Okay. So now it's all about finally block. So we will involve finally block on the next class, and we will see combination of try, catch, and finally combinations also. All use cases we will discuss again by involving finally block. Again, some use cases will come with the combination of these three point of view. So then again we'll discuss what are the use cases, what are the interview questions comes, or what are the real time coding point of view, what are the use cases comes. All the points we will discuss in the next class. So but the majority of try catch is completed, finally is pending. So finally we'll complete on Monday and we'll take combination again. Then we'll move to the throws and throw keyword. It will take another 2-3 classes, the exception handling. But okay, it's a very important and very good, and everywhere you have to write exception handling logic when you join into any application, 100%. The most important technique to write a better programming.